Every Night is Game Night, episode 65, the top 100 People's Choice Solo Games 2017, number 50 to number 1. Hey everybody, welcome back to Every Night is Game Night. This is episode 65, and this is Anthony, once again with Jason.
Yo, my peoples, what's up?
Guys, we are back with part 2 of the People's Choice Solo Games of 2017, which means we have Kevin Erskine with us once again.
Hey guys.
Hey, cool. Okay, so the bounds, the shackles are taken off of us. We can finally talk about the entire list. We're releasing this on Friday when Kevin has debuted the entire list. So there's no mystery, no spoilers, no more Jason having to go back and edit out us accidentally spoiling stuff. So we're going to just completely take the bounds off and talk about all the games that are on here. So the last episode was kind of like an appetizer. We talked about some games, obviously. That's what we do on this show. But we also talked a lot more about overall trends, way the list actually worked, all that kind of stuff. This one, we're going to go hot and heavy on the hottest games that people are playing or have been playing this year and in the years after that. So I'm really excited to get to this part of the show. I think we all feel the same way.
Absolutely.
Let's do it now. Okay, so fun times. So games that fell off the top 100 before, so that we don't end on a downer. I'm going to save the talk about the best games for the last. Let's get this out of the way. A lot of games, if you're going to have 26 games come on the list, then 26 games are going to come off the list. And I'd say the biggest loser was war games in general. Because you had a bunch, maybe you had in the teens and last year, a whole bunch of them fell off the list this year for various reasons. I just think there's too many popular games that are just crowding this stuff out, and the war game isn't quite keeping up. A couple of them, so like Cuba Libre, which is actually surprised me because of the coin series gets a lot of pub, and Cuba Libre is kind of that easier to get into. It's one recommend me a coin game, Cuba Libre. Minus 44 down to 111. I guess Cruel Necessity. Cruel Necessity, not necessarily a war game, but it is about war. And it's from Victory Point Games, which is, known for this playing in this kind of space. Wins the award for biggest fall from grace. Not sure what Cruel Necessity did to anybody. Minus 139. Minus 139, spot 195 on the list. What happened? I mean, I guess comment on maybe that one or just overall, like the performance of war games in general.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think you got a lot more people playing, a lot more solo gamers coming on, and most of them are not war gamers, and so they're just going to keep squeezing these games out. You've got some vocal people who recommend certain ones a lot, and so those are kind of hanging on. But a game like Cruel Necessity, I don't hear of anybody playing it. I don't see anybody recommending it. I think it was good. I played it. It was good, but you do it, you play it a couple of times, you move on, you do something else. And I think it's going to be tough with the people, because you get a lot of new gamers who are just not going to play these games, not for a long time.
Yeah, poor Ricky Royal. It's one of his favorites, and I know I think he's listening to this show. If you are, man, sorry. No one cares about the English Civil War. Get over it.
Rough, man, rough.
I'm kidding. I love you, man. Okay, so Anthony, we're gonna have to play some violins for you now. So some seminal Euros have fallen off as well. I know you're not that sad about Caverna, minus 35 to place 107, but Le Havre also minus 23 to 108. And the Gallerist, I'm shocked at this. Minus 52, place 136. There is not a single Lacerta game on this list.
Come on. I don't mind Caverna and Le Havre falling off the list, because if you go down the list, there are a lot of Rosenberg games on this list. So he doesn't need every single one of his games on the list. And of all the games that play solo, these are two that I'm happy dropping off. Mm-hmm. The Gallerist, it's so great. I just think those games are so big and unwieldy and, let's face it, kind of expensive that I don't know, like Kevin said, like new people coming in, they're going to start somewhere, and it's not going to be with this big $100 game. So,
oh, it's going to be with Kingdom Death Monster.
well, yeah. Well, if Kingdom Death Monster, if the only people who vote for that are, yeah, we'll get to that. But so the Gallerist, that hurts a little bit. I'm hoping maybe Lisboa makes up some ground next year. It came out kind of later in the year, but one of his games deserves to be on here. One.
Caverna got hurt because there's two of them. I mean, so the vote really got split between the cave farmers and cave versus cave or whatever the other one is.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I was never a huge fan of playing Caverna, the big one, solo. It's just a lot of stuff. Cave versus cave is pretty solid. I don't really consider them much the same game except for theme, but I could see some people being like, oh, I got to pick one of these. But again, how many Rosenbergs do we need on the list? So those don't bother me so much.
Cool. All right. So a couple of other noteworthy fall-offs. They are games that fell off the list from last year. If you listen to my episode last year, I was aghast that Mice and Mystics made the list. I cannot believe people played that game solo. The people heard me. So minus 76, place 153 for Mice and Mystics. That's where you belong.
Amen.
It underscores the point that I think last year was the last year that people put games on the list and they wanted to put 20, but they hadn't played 20 real solo games. So they put like 12 or 13 and then games they'd heard of. So I also put Star Wars X-Wing into this category. So like, oh, I know Star Wars X-Wing. I know it can play solo. I'm going to throw it on my list. But that one, minus 163, a huge fall down to 254 just because now we have so many solid solo options. I think we've reached that point where we're not going to get these kind of, I think, silly entries anymore. I mean, I'm not saying that these are bad games, but like, if you're voting for 20, those are 20 out of the box certifiable solo games, you know?
Mice and Mystics, it kills me because, I agree with you. I don't see people playing that solo, and I see it recommended all the time, and I want to just scream. It's like, I mean, unless the person asking is 9, no, it's not an adult's solo game, you know, and kids aren't going to play it solo, so it's a family game. That's what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I have plenty of adventure games. This is nowhere near that. I would not even consider this solo. Kids love it. That's when we play it.
Yeah, my grandkids love it.
Right. And the last one, this was personal vindication to me. This is Anthony knows what I'm talking about. Anthony totally knows what I'm talking about because he sees what I have on the notes here. Chris from Board Gamers Anonymous, check it out. Defenders of the Realm, minus 66, off the list. Bye, Felicia. You are out. Get out of my list.
I still like it.
No, you don't.
So do I.
Jason.
Okay. So part of my problem with that game, I don't want this to turn into a Defense of the Realm rant. Chris, I'm going on the record. I'm challenging you to a versus episode. Defense of the Realm versus Pandemic. Let's do it. Finally. Anyway, but just to say, like, part of my problem with that game is the fact that the board is just so random. Like, it's just like a bunch of fantasy names, you know, and here's a fantasy theme. All right. So let's, now that I've gotten my yayas out about Defense of the Realm, let's go into the third page of the list, which is 50 through 26. I called this section Adventure Games Assert Themselves. So if we saw a clustering of war games in the that lower kind of third page or second page of it, we saw if you're an adventure game, you're any good, you probably are going to debut in this part of the list. So we got This War of Mine, we got Gloom of Kilforth, we even have Lost Expedition, which isn't like a big explorer game, but I think the explorer theme really helped that game catapult this high. And that goes along with, like we mentioned before, KDM, Pathfinder Adventure Card Game, and good lord, people, Arkham Horror. Not like the LCG, but like Arkham Horror. Oh my goodness, people are still playing and voting for this. So, I mean, what are your guys' perspective on that? Did I get that right, or am I just making stuff up?
Well, I mean, depends on what we're talking about. Yeah, no, I mean, I think the adventure games it comes into that thing where you play it a lot. You're going to sit down. If you're going to play an adventure game, if you're going to like it, you're not just going to play it once every few Saturdays like a Euro or something like that, and it's going to leave an impression. It's telling a story. You've got games in here like Ghost Stories and Runebound and Pathfinder and, games that stick with you, and that they leave an impression. So I think that makes sense. They're going to jump up decently high. Like, looking through this, I'm like, I'm fine with all these. I understand why they're there. So
yeah, I think a lot of solo players, I think, really do like adventure games. I mean, I think that's, if you had one category, that's probably one of the bigger ones.
I'd say it's the biggest one. I honestly say that if war games started as the solo thing, I think a lot of people don't know that. Like, the war gamers were really the first solo players. Mm-hmm. Then we got a little bit of a surge with like the Euro thing, because you can play. They were low interaction solitaire games. I think we're entering this moment full force where the adventure kind of puzzle-ish game, but anything with like a big story to it that's what's going to really carry the day.
Yeah, I can't disagree.
Yeah.
So speaking of adventure, we mentioned this before, Kingdom Death Monster. Only 80 total votes. Only 80 people out of almost 500 people had this on their on their ballots. But of those, 20 of them had first place votes, and it had the highest average placement. So what Kevin did, I can't even tell you. Just look at the spreadsheet, for crying out loud. The detail is crazy. So what he did was he put the average, so like the average placement 1 through 20. KDM had the highest average placement at 4.6 because it was 80 votes. But of those 80 people, man, it was real high.
But look what it was last year though. 2.8 last time.
Oh, and, yeah, so it's even settled down from last time.
Well, and I think what's happened is you got, they had another Kickstarter that's been delivered, and so, like, I have it now. A lot of people have it, and you're like, it's good, but I have a lot of other games to compare it against, whereas in the past, I think a lot of the people, I had a lot of votes not a lot, I had a handful of votes last year where there was one game voted or two games voted, and it was Kingdom Death, and they just throw something else on the list, or that was their only vote. And
it's like Kingdom Death and chess.
I laugh because I'd see Kingdom Death on someone's list, and it was behind Limes and Defenders of the Realm and something else, and it's like, it's just funny that they'll have Pandemic ahead of it, and just because they play these other games, they're not just playing one game, so that's why its average vote, I mean, it almost doubled. I mean, where it was placed it was placed a lot lower now as far as the average, just because more people are playing it who actually have something to compare it to. Mm-hmm. So that was interesting. And because of the cost, it's never going to get the number of votes that, Scythe or something else like that gets.
Yeah, I really do wonder how much of it is people who spent that much money, they're just kind of like predisposed to liking it. Like, if it's hard for them to admit this game stinks. It's because they spent so much money on it. I don't know. I really don't.
It doesn't stink.
You played it?
Oh yeah, I have it.
Oh, cool.
It is really good. It's well written. I mean, to cut the cost down, I sold all the miniatures off for $150. Just got rid of them, and I just proxy them with different miniatures, and the game's a lot of fun. Which okay. I wish they'd have marketed it that way. Now it's reasonably priced if you can knock $150 to $200 off it.
No, that's good to know. I got to go get that to the table. I've heard mixed things, so gotta see what's going on.
I mean, just the whole package of what the combat is, because of the cards that you draw and that kind of stuff. The combat's kind of neat, but it's just roll the dice, hit. Okay, I hit, roll another dice. I won them, good. You move on. But the locations and stuff is neat. But the settlement phase where you build your whole settlement, that's just amazingly well written.
Cool. Anything leap out at you from this part of the list?
Spirit Island, man.
Yes,
that's the one that I'm like. When I first got the list in the spreadsheet, that's one of the first things I looked for. I'm like, did it make the list this year? And I was super psyched to see it way up here at 37.
Yeah, I did. Well deserved. well deserved. I think that in terms of like, so the game has a preponderance of co-ops on it. In terms of a co-op that does something really, really different, that's heavy and isn't afraid to be heavy, and that's how it deals with the alpha player problem, is by being so heavy you can't you can't actually tell people what to do because you're too busy looking at your own thing. It's a really, really good one.
One I love. I just started playing it recently. Someone recommended it, and it's ENGN.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even like deck builders, and I love that game.
I'm actually surprised to hear that, because we are going to get a deck builder that you are personally responsible for it being higher on the list.
Okay, yes.
Kevin Erskine.
I know.
With his thumb on the scale for some of these. We'll get to that in a second one. But yeah, I'm glad to hear that ENGN has made an impression on you. I agree. That game is really good, well served by its expansion. But I think that even without the expansion, it would have had a decent performance. I think the expansion just gave it a little bit even more of a push. So many options available in that game. So I think we're good enough for that. Leaving Earth, still going strong. It was on there last year. Anthony, I'm sure that will make you happy as well.
Yeah, no, it's good to see that one's still up there. It's hard to get. Not many people have it. It's not really in distribution, but the people who know of it track it down and seem to all agree that it's good. So I'm glad we're all on the same page there.
All right, so it is time. As Bruce Buffer says, it's time. The best of the best, 25-1. This is what you guys are here for. If you're gonna look at the list, you're probably gonna look at like either this first or this only or whatever it is. Sorry to make you guys wait for it, but hey, that makes it more fun, right? We're not gonna bury the lead here. Mage Knight is number one, and go ahead, Kevin. Go ahead. You have things to say.
No, it's every year it's going to be dethroned. It's going to be, this is going to dilute it. These votes for Mage Knight are going here. It's too long. It's too complicated. It's too this. And it is so overwhelmingly the most popular. I mean, it wins this. It's not even close.
Let me break down the statistical thing. I know you don't have the data in front of you, but I extracted some data. This is unbelievable. So it had an average of 4.7. So of all the people that have it on their list, it came in at an average of 4.7, which is a hair behind Kingdom Death. So when people are putting it on their list, they're putting it on number one. The only game that tied with it was Gloomhaven, which some people thought, hey, this could dethrone Mage Knight. Number 7, which is great. But so the thing was with Gloomhaven, it was only on the list of 104 people. I'm sure the distribution thing, people are still getting their second waves and maybe change next year. But I mean, Mage Knight was on like 185 people's list or something crazy like that. I mean, that 190, and that was by far the most it appeared on people's lists. So like another kind of thing, like, so Scythe was number 2, Robinson Crusoe was number 4. Those were the second and third places in terms of the frequency on people's lists. I'm looking at
Friday had a bunch too.
Yeah, like you're talking about 150, right? 100 of the 400 plus people, about 150 people voted for Friday, for Robinson Crusoe, for Scythe. That's like kind of the formula for why they are so high on the list. Not necessarily because people had them super high. For Robinson Crusoe and Scythe, people had them around 7.2, 7.4, somewhere in the, averaged out to like a 7. Mage Knight is at a 4. So if you are on the top of people's list, if you are on more people's list than any other game by like a factor of whatever it is, when you have, in terms of Kevin's score thing, you basically double up the 9th place game, and they're all super clustered together. Meanwhile, like Mage Knight this thing is a behemoth. I mean, it's boring.
Well, look
Come
at
on,
it.
Mage Knight.
Well, I asked people if they wanted to retire it, and they said no. It'll get to next year, and that was 2015.
Oh, like a Hall of Fame?
Yeah. Look at the number one votes. I mean, 65 number one votes. So a third of the people who voted for it pick it as their number one. A quarter of the people who voted more than a quarter of the people who voted in the whole thing had this on their list.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the Mage Knight's this game, and no game is for everybody. And I tell everybody that, and I'm very careful when I recommend Mage Knight. But I will say this with all honesty: every single solo gamer out there needs to try it once. And it may not be for you, and you may not like it, but you need to try it, because I bet you I hear 10 times a year or more, someone's like, oh, I didn't know, and I finally tried it, like, oh my God, this is unbelievably how good this is. I should have played this years ago. I mean, this is not a new game. It doesn't have expansions that came out. There's all the reasons why people think some game should be moving up the list. Mage Knight, it's too long, it's too complicated, it's got all the negatives, yet it's number one by a lot, which should tell people something that, you need to try this thing. You may not like it, but you sure need to try it.
And it was either on the back end of the Dice Tower top 100, or it was like kind of in that next 20 or whatever it is. And
yeah,
they were
80s or something.
What was that?
I think it was in the 80s.
And they were looking at each other going, what is going on here? Like, why is this game on there? It has to be the solo gamers. Has to be. Like, there's no other reason. Like, you're not going to vote for that game as a multiplayer game. Like, and I'm sure it was in the 200s when it was. But the solo gamers were coming in force, and it were just pushing it up that list. Kevin, mission accomplished.
Yeah, I think I only voted for 1 or 2 games on their list, and that was one of them.
Okay, so let's get into a couple of other things. Actually, you know what? I'll run through these. So, and I'll let Anthony kind of jump in and comment on some of these. So, BG user Shut Mellow had a really great idea, and I think I'm going to try to adopt this every year that we do this. So, not just like the number one games, but the best in show for each kind of different category. And I've picked out a couple, and I'll ask you guys about if you guys agree with the people. So you mentioned before, Friday. I think Friday and Onirim are going to just keep on trading for best short card game. I think that's pretty solid, right? I don't know that we're going to get much change there unless like another card game just comes in like a lightning bolt,
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah. It's
those two get recommended every time someone wants a game.
Yeah, Friday and Onirim, those are your short card games. Those are your, your go-tos. I want to know about a solitaire game that's better than Klondike. Boom. There you go.
Yeah, and both of them got apps this year too, for better or worse. So it's even easier to recommend them now. And be like, oh, check this out real quick, then go pick it up.
Onirim for better. Friday, the other one. The longer card game, if you want an adventure card game, there's a lot of them on there, but I mean, Lord of the Rings LCG, Arkham Horror LCG are dominating the field. I don't think it's even close. I really anticipate, I think you called this, Kevin, last year, that they would kind of pair up and just be right next to each other, and that's exactly where they are.
Yeah, and I think they're taking, a lot of people voted for both, but I think Arkham is why some of the other Arkham games are dropping. Mm-hmm. Eldritch and Arkham Horror.
Elder Sign, man. Elder Sign is still punting around there.
Yeah, I don't get that.
Nor do I.
Speaking of dice chucking, so dice chucking Dungeon Crawler, we mentioned that Descent, you were a little bit surprised that it was so low. The highest dice chucking Dungeon Crawler, on one hand it's a surprise, and on one hand it's not. Too many bones. So surprised because it's so expensive, and it's not available really in retail, and it came in waves and all that kind of stuff. But not surprised because of the component quality, and people are just really excited about it. Have you got a chance to play this? I know, Anthony, you still have to get it to the table. Kevin, have you had a chance to
played it? 30, 40 times. It's unique. There is no other game like it, because I don't know that I'd call it a dungeon crawler. I don't know what you call it, but and maybe that's why it's unique. There is nothing else like it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I might own 2 or 3 dungeon crawlers or card games or whatever, and I might only vote for one, but if I have this, I'm voting for it.
Mm-hmm. So not fair of me to call this a dungeon crawler. I might have to reach lower in the list. You're screwing up my mojo, man.
Well, I mean, you could. I talked to someone the other day about that. What is a dungeon crawler? So I don't know. But it's definitely a dice game. It's not a dudes on a map or anything.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Euro. This is Anthony's corner right over here. So I think I've never played At the Gates of Loyang. Is that like a classic Euro?
It's another Rosenberg, man. These are both Rosenberg. Feast for Odin and Gates of Loyang. But there's some solid Euro representation all the way up to the top of the list. I'd call Scythe and Terraforming Mars kind of in that ballpark. Gates of Loyang. I've played
called the Euro.
Yeah, no, that's exactly how I reviewed it. This is the adventure game for Euro players. It's a dungeon crawl for Euro. It's very puzzly. I think it's why I like it so much.
Yeah, I guess I mentioned those two games because I wanted to distinguish kind of classic Euros from things that use Euro elements. Like I guess I think mentally of Terraforming Mars as an evolved race for the galaxy, which isn't quite a Euro. It introduces Euro mechanisms into that card space. So like it's almost like it does more. So, and when people ask like, what is the best Euro, they usually mean a thing, right? They usually mean specific, you build stuff and you build your little engine, there's low interaction. That's kind of where I was.
Yeah, Feast for Odin kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I would say, of those two, I like a Feast for Odin a little bit better, but Gates of Loyang is a very tight game. I'm still surprised it gets up here so high because it is older. It did get reprinted.
I think the solo people really like Gates of Loyang because it's a really puzzly solo. Of the Rosenberg games, it's almost like it should have been just a solo game.
Yeah, mm-hmm. I can see that.
Definitely. Speaking of Euro, its close cousin, worker placement, viticulture. So viticulture, do we agree that this would be, if like someone says, suggest to me a worker placement game, would viticulture be your choice? Like your first choice, like play this to learn what worker placement is?
A solo one, or you mean as a gateway?
I guess either one. Either like if a solo player wanted to know what a worker placement, like what this whole thing is all about.
Yeah, if it needed to play solo, sure. There's a lot of great worker placement games out there.
So the worker placement sort of.
It's true. Yeah, with a bit more of the adventure element. But viticulture is solid, and it's fairly accessible in terms of the rules. And now at least you can buy the game, the Essential Edition, and it has the solo rules in the box. You don't have to buy a bunch of weird expansions for it, which I think was a barrier before.
Mm-hmm. So, like, if Lords of Waterdeep had a solo mode, would that just trounce the competition, or is there a game? Because you think like worker placement, I know there's like a interactive element to it. You kind of need that automa to do stuff, but it's not direct competition. I think a lot of more worker placement games could have solo modes if, so like Anachrony, I think it's like a hyper worker placement game, like a heavier one. But can you think of like a worker placement game, if it has a solo mode, that it would just crush on this list?
I think the gateway worker placement game that I was thinking of is Stone Age.
Okay.
But I don't know what kind of a solo game that would be. Again, they usually end up being points, beat your score, and I can't do that.
Yeah. Almost all those Rosenberg games we talked about, except with the exception of Loyang, are some variant of worker placement in some kind, and almost all of them are high score race. So they're not it's pretty easy to make it solo. You just build in some kind of mechanism to block spaces and then just do your thing. It's when you throw in an automa like viticulture does and you actually create a win-loss condition and something to play against, that's when it makes it interesting. So I think you'd have to do something like that for these other games, but there's no reason you couldn't.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
What do you call
good.
The category?
Scythe, it's a hybrid. It escaped me. Like there's area control in it. There's Euro elements to it. There's a little bit of combat in there. So I didn't put it in a category.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah. But Scythe, number 2, it was number 1 on the Dice Tower list, and people are just loving that game. I think we all agree it's well deserved, the love. I just didn't feel like categorizing
it. We don't blame you, man. It's a hard one to categorize.
Okay, a couple of others. The best pure dice game, I think people are liking their dice chucking, from their Yahtzees and on even just you talk to people in muggles who don't play board games. They've played Yahtzee and it's had fun. So in terms of the solo game or Yahtzee game, One Deck Dungeon was not on the list last year because I think it kind of caught fire. It missed the crest of the voting. But if it was the vote, if the voting was a month later, I think it would have buoyed a little higher. But now it's kind of in its proper place. Edges out Elder Sign. It pushed down. I think it pushed down Pandemic: The Cure. I think it pushed down Deep Space D6. I think it is if you're gonna play a dice game, I think it's fallen off a little bit from its hype crest. But that's the game, right?
But it's got an expansion coming, so it's going to go up again probably.
Expansion coming, and I think they've promised more stuff to it. As long as people buy it, they're just going to keep on releasing stuff for it. So, I wish it was a little bit simpler, and I wish it was a little bit easier, so it had that gateway-ish feel going. So, like, that's why Onirim is great. You can make it hard, you can make it easy. So I wish there was an easier mode to it, so I can make it a family game. But hey, what are you going to do? And then the best deck builder. I think this category is kind of senseless because what's deck building? It's just a mechanism. It's not really a feel. Why not just say best card game? But hey, people want to know what the best deck builder is. Legendary Alien. So of all those legendaries, Legendary Alien rises up to the pack. And I think that, Anthony, I know you like this game, right?
I do. It is the only variant in any way of Legendary I actually enjoy. With a pretty decent gap between this and all the rest. So.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So wait, hold on, Mr. Erskine over there. Shadowrun Crossfire. Last year, we identified that you had put it in you were hyping it up in the Solid Gear Games at your table, and all of a sudden it's like, bam, on the list. And there it is again. Like, apparently it lasted a year. So are you going to take responsibility for biasing your own list, sir?
Well, I mean, I vote for it, but I think what's interesting with Shadowrun is I think it's gonna plummet next year because I think Dragonfire it's gonna split the votes, and I think it's a little better. So you may even see it just replace it. I don't know. That's gonna be interesting to see.
Yeah, for people who don't know, Dragonfire re-implemented Shadowrun Crossfire, and they've promised all sorts of content for it. There's already little packs and character packs and enemy packs and stuff dribbling out. Shadowrun never really got the consistent support. There's stuff for it, but not really.
There's one expansion for it, really.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of other little dribbles.
Well, they say they're going to put out more now, but I mean, I have Dragonfire. It's on the table now, and I love it. And,
yeah,
I'll start campaigning for that now.
So you don't, so you don't count that one as like a deck builder that doesn't feel like the same thing as a regular deck builder?
No, because you buy cards, but they go straight into your hand, and you might only pull it up one more time in the game. It's like some people call Mage Knight a deck builder. Yeah, no.
Nah.
I think
you don't know what you're talking about, people.
I think of Dominion as a deck builder. If you're going through your hand 10, 15, 20 times in a game, that's a deck builder. That's what I think of as, if that's the primary mechanic, then that's what I call a deck builder. So, yeah, Aeon's End is, Shadowrun Crossfire sort of is. It is, but it's less of that.
And the last one, well, I mean, we could talk about all these games like Eldritch Horrors. And I'm happy to see it at number 12. Seems like it's kind of settled in there. It's my Arkham game of choice. And I think you've played this one, Nemo's War. In terms of what Jokemeister was talking about, in terms of like a return to popularity, like Nemo's War for a couple years is kind of floating in the low 100s, and it dip, and then it's gotten the second reprint, and bam! I mean, look where it's at right now. I'm looking at number 19, I believe.
Have you played?
I have not played it, no.
Anthony, have you?
I have a copy sitting here, waiting to be played.
Oh, I thought you had played it.
No, I have yet to play this thing.
I played the original, and I can't get anybody to tell me what makes this version better, except for the components. So I'm stunned by how well this is doing.
The components matter, dude.
Yeah, well, I guess maybe Victory Point Games going to get the hint now that maybe they should start stepping up the components, and people will buy a lot more of their games. Yeah, this one just completely surprises me.
It is a very nice production, and compared to what I've seen of the first edition, it is 1,000 times better production.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the first one was paper.
Yeah, I mean, you just answered your own question, man. I mean, Victory Point Games
changed.
But okay, so if you're playing a small card game, right, from Victory Point, like I'm a personal fan of Gem Rush, and there's a couple of other their little small games that they're fine. But if you're playing like an involved game, and how long is Nemo's War? Let's be honest here. It's something like Cruel Necessity as well, because that's also a long game. Like, I don't want to sit in paper and soot for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. I don't want to have to reach into my, like, rub my hand with that stupid napkin they include multiple times while I'm playing. They're trolling me with that stupid napkin. Like, the fact that I can just open this and, like, it feels really good, you know? Darkest Night was another one that got a reprint. That one kind of fell off. And
well, the reprint's not out yet, is it?
Yeah, it's not out yet. They kickstarted this year. It might make a return. I happen to like Darkest Night, but the old version was just ugh. Hey everybody, Future Jason here in the editing room. Was listening back to the episode and I figured that not everybody might get the joke about Victory Point Games and their component quality. So I just wanted to make sure for any newer listeners, break it down really fast for you. So Victory Point Games is a company whose motto is the gameplay is the thing. The reason why that's their motto is because they use a very low-cost printing quality for the vast majority of their games, especially historically. So what they would do is they would print in-house or locally here in the States, and they use a laser cutting procedure, which the cardboard was very cheap, and the procedure itself generated a lot of soot on the components. So when you got a Victory Points game, it would often come with a napkin because they knew that if you were punching out the components and stuff, you would get soot all over your fingers. Let's just say glad to see that they are considering other printing options. Back to the show. So in terms of the Nemo's War, there's actually an active Kickstarter right now for a little tiny expansion, and you can get a reprint of it. So I think that game is going to be there. Anthony, let me know how it is because I'm really curious.
Yeah, it's definitely high on my list to try, but couldn't tell you what captured people on this one. I'm surprised too. It's just the Kickstarter didn't get a ton of attention that I remember. I certainly missed it. So
it's talked a lot on the Solitaire Games on the Table, but I don't get it. I was stunned when I saw this.
All right. Anything else that jumped out of you? I think we've basically covered everything we need to cover about the list. I mean, if there's anything just kind of hanging threads, speak now or forever hold your peace.
The one that I still go back to, Kingdom Death Monster. Can you imagine the people's reaction when they see this list and they go, what? I mean, like, Friday is better than Kingdom Death Monster and Army Rim is a better game than Kingdom Death Monster. They're going to go crazy.
You have like those 80 Kingdom Death Monster people in there just railing against the machine. You guys!
Well, and that's why, when I put up the list and I put in big, bold letters that this is just for fun, because I had someone last year said, well, this game's not on the list. This whole thing is invalid. I'm like, what? I mean, this is the way the voting went, and it's just for fun. Just chill.
I have news for you guys. Arkham Horror is higher than Kingdom Death Monster. That's the cross-cultural bringing together people.
It's got to hurt, guys. It's got to hurt. It's not.
Oh, my God.
One thing, if you look at all the games that are at the top, none of them have split votes anywhere. There's no other Mage Knight. Whereas, a lot of these, like the legendaries, their votes are getting split. Arkham, Eldritch. I think a lot of people who liked Arkham Horror have switched to Eldritch Horror, and now some of them are going to the card games. So there may be a lot of fans, and maybe, if there weren't as many of those games in that category, so many of them, that maybe those games would be higher. But there's only one Mage Knight. There's only one Scythe. Terraforming Mars is a little surprising. The Gloomhaven, there's only one of those, so it's like those games are all unique.
Actually, I lied. In terms of the dice game, I just realized Space Hulk Death Angel is floating around there. Do you guys count that as a real dice game? I just count that as an exercise in masochism.
It's a
I love it, but man,
it's a die game, right? It's only got one die.
Yeah.
Yes, that is why it escaped my thing. When I think of a dice game, I think of many dice. That one just has the one.
No, that's a card game.
I'm good. Cool. I had so much fun to have you on the show, Kevin. I really hope that we're, doing this basically every year, and whatever we could do to kind of help the list out, give us some promo, give people a different perspective on stats, and, help people be involved. And, this is such an exciting thing for the solo community. Just name it, and, you got it, Kev. So thank you so much for everything you do and for the time that you spent with us today.
You're welcome. And I told this to a lot of people. I have just as much fun as the people watching this and voting and looking forward to it. I love doing this. And it's you see the solo community just grow and grow and grow. And, I hope that this is some part, helping that. It's a labor of love for sure.
All right. So that is everything, guys. We've gone through the entirety of 2017's People's Choice solo games. This has been quite a journey, especially comparing to last year. So it's a lot of fun, especially from, I think, our perspective, having a full year now under our belts with the podcast and talking to some of these designers and playing a good chunk of these games and kind of seeing how people are responding to them. So a whole bunch of fun. If you have not yet, make sure you hop on over and check out this list. Obviously, get in there, leave your comments, get into the arguments, but keep it fun, obviously, about which games belong where.
KDM fans.
Yeah, KDM fans. Go to town,
Okay,
guys. And if you want to hit us up and let us know what you think about this episode or this series of episodes or the podcast in general, definitely do that as well. We're on iTunes. You can leave us a quick review there. On Apple Podcasts. You can hit us up on boardgamersanonymous.com, as well as on Twitter at ENGN_podcast. You can find us on Facebook on the Board Gamers Anonymous page or in the Solo Board Gaming group. We're all over the place. So definitely hop in. Let us know what you think. Or just say hi and let us know what your favorite solo game is from this list or not from this list. Maybe next year on the list. But for this week, that's going to go ahead and be everything. So until next time, go ahead and grab a solo game off the shelf. And let's make every night game night.
Later, everybody.